Hey guys, it's the Loud Guys. Today we are going to visit New York, USA megacity. So we are not going to actually visit it, but we are going to visit it from our home India. That is by seeing this video. Because this video is one of the best videos people have sent us about New York. They have said that okay, it shows New York in the best possible way and you'll get to know about everything about New York and why New York is New York. Like USA's mega city, America's largest city, and if you talk about America to everyone, they know that it is New York. And the thing is, if you talk about India, people will be like, oh, Delhi, Mumbai. So similarly, it's New York, California. So these are the main cities or states that everybody knows about America. So let's see how unique New York is, because and how unique New York is, because we have seen many mega cities and all, and we don't know how much differentiated it is, and we have never been to that place. So this will be a very a new experience for us, exploring New York. Of course we have seen some of the other clips here and there, the Times Square and this and that, but I have not seen New York through and through. So let's see this video.
And seriously, I'm also so much excited to watch this video. And previously we saw the video of the London and we got to know a lot of things about the London. It is not like that we got to know that the present things which is happening in the London, the development. It's not like that we just saw the London's development. Even we got introduced by its history. We got to know that that it was the largest city of the world, and there were a lot of things which we got to about the London, and that it is full of arts. And in Bollywood, is not Bollywood in Hollywood wise, it is a city full of entertainment. So that these are the things which we got to know about the London. And I literally don't have that much knowledge about the New York, but after watching this video, I hope I get a lot of information and knowledge about the New York, and maybe I will visit New York once in my life. So let's watch the video.
It will be very interesting to watch it, and it might force us to book a ticket for New York. But it is very hard for Indians to at this moment come to New York or any place in America. It is a year's visa in advance. You have to file for it, and then you have to wait for a year, and then you get the visa. So it is a very difficult process at this moment. So and the plan is not to visit it in a year or so. So let's see how good New York is in this video.
Every urban center has its monuments, its history, its skyline. But great cities are more than buildings. Great cities have a pulse.
Yeah.
And few megacities capture the complexity, chaos, and vitality of a living system more vividly than New York.
Oh.
Yet, for a place so deeply embedded in American culture, its fascinating origins often go overlooked. After all, no city becomes the celebrity's playground, the city that never sleeps, the melting pot, the mother of exiles, and the American dream overnight. While it is no longer the largest metropolis on Earth, it is still the most influential. But as this fast-paced, capitalist mecca matures, it's confronting a unique set of challenges. Let's take a bite out of the Big Apple, America's megacity.
Whoa.
One of the most remarkable things about this concrete jungle is how quickly it sprouted up. Compared to the other two megacities we've profiled so far, New York is relatively young. Less than 400 years ago, the city looked like this.
Huh?
In 1609, the island of Manhattan was found by an expedition. Its leader, Henry Hudson, realized immediately that it was a geographical gem, the ideal location to build a city.
Wow.
A large river ran along its entire western shore, and on its eastern edge was a narrow estuary connected to a large bay. Its southern tip was flanked by two more large bays and dozens of islands, including the much larger Long Island, which shields Manhattan from ocean storms.
Oh.
And, as we saw in our previous explorations of Mexico City and Bangladesh, containing and distributing clean water to residents is often a keystone challenge for dense urban centers. On this front, however, New York City reaps the benefits of nature. Direct contact with water ensures reliable access, while elevated terrain spares it from excessive flooding. But back to the 17th century.
OP geography.
After word reached Europe that Hudson had discovered what he called as pleasant a land as one can tread upon, the mercantilist-minded Dutch sent 30 families to build a settlement called New Amsterdam.
New
In
Amsterdam?
exchange for some metal kettles, axes, and cloth, the Native Americans who hunted throughout the area gave the Dutch the island.
Huh?
Slaves were immediately brought in to begin building the town. The town's population reached 700 in 1664, but it still wasn't receiving very much support from the crown back in Holland. So English King Charles II swooped in and, with 4 warships, captured the town without resistance. He then gave the colony to his brother, the Duke of York, and you can guess what they called it.
New York.
By the end of the 18th century, New York had become an important port city. Then came the Revolution that changed everything. In 1776, New York joined the other American colonies and declared independence from the English. After getting kicked out of Boston, the British responded by sending an entire fleet of redcoats to seize and occupy New York, which they held for 7 years until George Washington led his victorious rebel army back into the city. After the war, New York briefly served as the capital of the newly formed United States until the federal government moved to the more centrally located District of Columbia. It's fascinating how that came about. The decision was ultimately up to President Washington, but he left it up to his 2 right-hand men to figure out. In a backroom deal, brokered by James Madison over dinner, Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton of New York agreed to allow the nation's capital to move south to Northern Virginia, the home state of Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson. In exchange, Jefferson agreed to support Hamilton's financial plan, which included the creation of a powerful central bank. Soon after, the New York Stock Exchange was established, laying the groundwork for Lower Manhattan to become the financial capital of the world. Today, it's home to the 2 largest stock exchanges by total market capitalization.
Wow.
A couple more events in the early 1800s helped accelerate the city's growth. A grid pattern of streets was laid out, providing an organized plan of expansion to the north, and the opening of the Erie Canal in 1825. This increased New York's importance as an export center of goods, agricultural products, and raw materials that could now be easily transported from the resource-rich Great Lakes region. Around this time, the city became the gateway to America, as large numbers of German and Irish immigrants arrived. Between 1820 and 1850, New York's population quadrupled. Many of these newcomers had to settle in tenement houses without proper sanitation or clean water. Diseases like cholera, typhoid, and smallpox became rampant. The construction of the Croton Aqueduct, one of the world's first great modern water distribution systems, helped to solve this problem, and hygiene began to immediately improve. In order to preserve the fast-growing city's connection to the environment, a 600-acre area of swampland and squatters' shacks was set aside for preservation and eventually transformed into Central Park. Today, it's the most visited urban park in the country.
Central Park.
Heading into the 1860s, slavery was deeply dividing the northern and southern states. New York was the epicenter of the abolition movement. When the Civil War began in 1861, after Abraham Lincoln was elected president, a riot broke out as angry white mobs attacked blacks, who they blamed for low wages and the war. Hundreds were killed. Despite the unrest, the city's economic engine roared, as it became the vital source of financing and supplies for the 2 million soldier-strong Union war effort. After the Northern victory brought peace to the country, New York's industrialists were free to focus on building. In 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge was completed, linking New York to the 3rd largest city in the country. The 1880s also brought electricity to the city, and by 1893, there were 1,500 arc lamps illuminating New York streets.
Wow, 15.
So the
In
progress
1898,
was
the state
very
legislature
rapid.
incorporated Manhattan and the surrounding 4 boroughs of Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island into the city of New York, instantly doubling its population and quadrupling its land area.
Wow.
After leading the earlier fight to abolish slavery, New York was now the leader of the women's suffrage and workers' rights movements. This culture of inclusivity also welcomed African Americans, fleeing the destruction and segregation of the South. They largely settled in an area on the Upper West Side that became known as Harlem, the cultural capital of Black America. Electricity made the city the center of nightlife in the Roaring '20s. By the end of the decade, the New York metropolitan area's population had grown to 8 million, passing London to become the planet's largest urban area.
Wow.
In 1931, the city also had the world's tallest building, as the Empire State Building rose to dominate the skyline in an
Empire State
almost
Building.
ridiculous way. World War II brought another wave of immigrants, fleeing the chaos and destruction in Europe. When it was over, New York's status as the unofficial capital of the world was cemented, with the construction of the gleaming United Nations complex along the East River.
Oh.
Throughout its history, New York has also been a core force behind major social movements, that have focused the country's vision while unifying New Yorkers as a community with a common identity. The city played an important role in the civil rights movement of the 1960s, as leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King rallied support through the New York-based news media. The gay rights movement counts Greenwich Village as its epicenter. This neighborhood was also the site of a crucial battle between the powerful developer Robert Moses and residents led by activist and author Jane Jacobs. Their grassroots movement ultimately blocked Moses from carrying out a project that would have bulldozed the village and the area now known as Soho in order to cut through the heart of Manhattan with a giant expressway.
Oh.
The Lower Manhattan Expressway was to have connected the Holland
I
Tunnel
thought US
with
people loved
the
roads
Williamsburg and Manhattan
or
bridges.
highways. So why did they stop
We would
it?
have destroyed most of Soho. We would have lost one of the greatest inventories of 19th century buildings, not just in New York, but in the world.
Okay.
The highways, of course, destroyed the neighborhoods that they went through. Where was this going to end?
How did they destroy it?
The whole place was going to be laced with highways. What would we have left of Manhattan?
I mean, Moses thought he was improving the city by bringing it up to date, by making it work for the automobile. And as it became clear that urban highways were in fact profoundly destructive, it really became a battle between opposing forces.
In the 1970s and 80s,
Highways are
economic
destructive.
problems and the crack cocaine epidemic created a spike in crime, but modernized police strategies and the rebirth of Wall Street helped solve these challenges.
Cocaine
Today, there are
epidemic.
less than 400 murders a year in the city, down from a high of over 2,000 in 1990.
2000.
Of course, New York still lives with the traumatic memory of its worst day,
I
September
know.
11, 2001,
Yeah.
when more than 2,500 civilians and first responders died in the tragic attack on the World Trade Center. In the 16 years since, One World Trade Center has risen from the ashes to become the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. Today, the New York metropolitan area has over 20 million residents. Just to be clear, the city of New York has about 8.5 million people. But for the purposes of this megacity series, I'm using entire metropolitan populations because that's a city's labor market, its economic zone, if you will.
Oh.
Anyway, New York no longer is the largest city or metropolitan area in the world, but its still massive population presents tremendous challenges. For one, its subway is one of the busiest transportation systems on Earth. Its ridership nearly doubled from 1 billion annual riders in the 1990s to 1.8 billion today, but the amount of track and subway cars has stayed the same.
Oh,
This
nice.
crowding has bogged things down. The system-wide average on-time rate has dropped from 90% over the last decade to just 65%.
Oh.
The silver lining is that a $17 billion Second Avenue subway line is coming online. The first phase opened this year, but the remaining 3 phases could take more than 2 decades to complete. Another issue is exorbitantly expensive housing. Costs in some high-end areas have been driven up by foreign investors, like wealthy Russians and Chinese, who like to park their fortunes in the ultra-secure New York real estate market. But the root cause of high prices is
Wow,
simple
you're so
supply and demand.
pretty.
Whenever a new housing development is built with affordable units, it gets 10 times as many applicants as there are units available to rent.
The demand
The
is so
mega
high.
developments, Essex Crossing, Hunters Point South, and Pacific Park that are going up throughout the city are seeing this firsthand. In the near term, the high-end housing shortage will be eased, slightly, by the 28-acre Hudson Yards mega development. At an estimated total price tag of over $20 billion, this new neighborhood is the most expensive real estate project in American history.
Oh.
Another future mega project getting people's attention for different reasons is Cornell Tech on Roosevelt Island in the East River. The school joins the more than 120 colleges and universities in the city and will feature the world's first high-rise residential building that meets passive house energy efficient principles. Projects like these make it clear New York
Like
City
New York is actually the capital of the world, and New York is working towards it always. And like New York is the epitome of America. Like it makes sure that it continuously upgrades itself. Even though you feel like New York might be at the point of saturation, but it never is. It just grows bigger and bigger.
New York City is cultivating the human capital needed to tackle the world's biggest problems. Thanks to climate change, New York will have its fair share. As we saw firsthand after Hurricane Sandy flooded large parts of the region, there is no bigger threat to New York City than rising seas. That storm caused nearly $20 billion in damages,
Oh.
with New York's coastline expected to be between 1 and 2 feet higher by 2050. Now is the time to start planning for the future, whether that's designing flood and seawall solutions that blend with existing infrastructure, or embracing a policy known as managed retreat, where areas are simply abandoned in favor of higher ground.
Oh.
With so much at stake, there's little doubt New York City will meet these challenges. In many ways, it represents the best of our modern world. It's dynamic, creative, and socially tolerant.
Wow, what a video it was. Seriously, I'm in love with the New York City. It's not like that we got the recent information about the New York, but even we got familiar about the history of the New York. We got to know that how New York faced the things even in the past. Firstly, it was with the full of forest. It was in the center of the sea. After that, a guy found this city, and he was like that, yes, here we can make the city. And after that, the New York City started establishing, and here we are now. Now we can say that New York is the second largest city of the America. And even it's not like that it's not like that yet it faced a lot of things in the past. Still it is developing so good. After that, they said that it's like that they faced a lot of things in the history. After that, they faced the things like cocaine things. They said that the many youngsters was suffering through the cocaine in the New York. After that, they go through that situation also. Then they talked about the flood condition. And yeah, as we all know that the New York in the center of the sea, so so flood is the main concern about the people of the New York City. And but still they are trying to work on it, and if they do work on it, then definitely New York will be the so developed city of the world. Seriously, I'm in love with the New York City. And first and most importantly, it is developed so much. Still there is greenery everywhere, and there even the water is also, it's not like the people of the America is polluting the water is also good. So I really like these things about the Britishers, and I do think that this is the bad things about us Indians, that we pollute our country so much. We pollute our water, we just throw our garbage everywhere. So that's the reason. These are the things which can differentiate, which makes a big difference between the India and the America. Seriously, I like this video so much, and we have to say that New York is so beautiful. It is so developed, and yet it is also the people in the New York City is very concerned about the nature. And we also got to know that you people do love highways so much. We got to know that in 18 he said that in 18 or 16, I don't know, I didn't remember now, the people started establishing, no, he talked they said that they started establishing highway. Because of that, many 90s building got destroyed. So maybe they established highway after 90s, that could be happen. So yeah, I really like this video.
Yes, of course, the city was very beautiful. And just to imagine that 400 years ago there was nothing. It was just full greenery out there, and they just changed it to this beautiful place. And like people changed it, and the people came around and around. And like also, like New York is so big, like it has all those places. Like there was one place, Connecticut, and all these counties were around, and now this big thing comes under New York. So there are many people, and that there are all the important events happened around New York only, like the abolishment movement, and all the, like even the women rights movement. All the big movements happened around New York itself. So New York was always the center of it. Like even the Washington DC, I think so, is the capital of USA, but I think so the major capital or the known capital around the world, like if you ask all around the world, everybody, like which is the capital of USA, they will mostly say New York, because that's what people know, and nobody will be able to say like Washington Washington DC. Washington DC is just to manage all the government work and such. And New York is such beautiful, and the Times Square is so famous. Like everybody, like I've seen many Indian films also, like whenever they get even a small place in that Times Square Times Square ads, and then they are like so elated by it, and then they show it off like, okay, like we were shown on the Times Square. So it is such a big moment for them. So how did you guys feel about it? Do let us know in the comment section below. So do like, share, and
Subscribe.
bye.